Hello, good morning students. Today we will be discussing hypolipidemic agents. They are the ones which regulate the lipids. The learning objectives of today's class is that at the end of the session, you must be able to define and classify hyperlipidemia, explain various types of lipoproteins, classify the hypolipidemic drugs, explain the mechanisms of actions of various drugs, enumerate the main adverse effects, and describe the pharmacotherapy of hyperlipidemia. Firstly, the lipids and their role. Lipids are needed for the normal cell functioning of especially the cell membranes, the steroid synthesis. Lipids are present in the body as phospholipids, fatty acids, cholesterol, triglycerides. The normal levels, they must be maintained or they must be kept in balance in the body for the optimum functioning of the various, for the normal functioning of the cell. Hyperlipidemia means high levels of lipoproteins in the body. It is also called hyperlipoproteinemia or dyslipidemia. Two major clinical sequelae to the hyperlipidemia are the development of atherosclerosis, which would lead to narrowing of the coronary blood vessels and other blood vessels also in the body, and it can lead to heart disease and stroke. In addition to that, acute pancreatitis can also occur. Now this table, it shows the characteristics and functions of plasma lipoproteins. The chylomicrons, they are the largest in size, 100 to 500 nanometers. The triglycerides are more than the cholesterol esterase. The main source of chylomicrons is from the diet, and their function is the dietary transport of the triglycerides. Smaller than that are the chylomicron remnants. Here the cholesterol esterase that is more than the triglycerides, and they are obtained from the diet, and the dietary cholesterol transport is their main function. And then very low density lipoproteins, their size is 40 to 80 nanometers. The triglycerides, they are more, the main source is from the liver, and they cause the endogenous triglyceride transports. Then comes the intermediate density lipoproteins. Their size is 30 to 35 nanometers. Cholesterol esterase, that is more in quantity than the triglycerides. The main source is from the very low density lipoproteins, and the function is to transport the cholesterol esterase and triglycerides to liver, and they are the source of low density lipoproteins. Next we come to the low density lipoproteins. Their size is now 20 to 25 nanometers. Cholesterol esterase contains the LDL, and they are sourced from intermediate density lipoproteins, and the function is to transport the cholesterol to tissues and liver. Next comes the high density lipoproteins. Their size is the minimum, that is 5 to 10 nanometers. And the lipids which are contained in it are the phospholipids and cholesterol esterase. The source is from the tissues and the cell membranes, and they function by removing the cholesterol from tissues. So the high density lipoproteins are the beneficial ones. Their levels should be higher than the others. The others, if the values are higher, are deleterious to the health. HDL are cardioprotective in nature. What is a lipoprotein? The lipids, they are as such insoluble in plasma, and they are made soluble with the help of certain proteins. The fatty acids, they are carried by the albumin. The larger lipids, they are carried as macromolecular complexes with various proteins like apolipoproteins, and such complexes are called lipoproteins. The various types of apolipoproteins, ApoB100, This is formed in liver and it is incorporated in VLDL, very low density lipoproteins, intermediate and low density lipoproteins. Next is ApoB48. This is formed in intestines and it is incorporated in the chylomicron remnants. ApoA1 lipoproteins, they constitute the HDL and is a cofactor for lecithin cholesterol acyl transferase enzyme. Next is ApoC2. This is a cofactor for lipoprotein lipase enzyme. ApoE. This is a marker for hepatic receptors. The lipoproteins, here you can see the cell membrane. This is the protein fragment. This is the phospholipids, and this is the brown one is the cholesterol. So this is the formation of cell membrane where they are found. Now coming to lipoprotein A, a few words about it. It is low density lipoprotein like moiety and lipoprotein A protein. It is joined by a disulfide bridge. It is a highly homologous to plasminogen but lacks the ability to be activated by tissue plasminogen. High lipoprotein A is an independent risk factor for the coronary arterial disease. Its metabolism, cholesterol metabolism, it is either exogenous or endogenous. Exogenous in the gut, the dietary fat that is absorbed into the intestinal epithelium, and the chylomicrons from it are absorbed into they pass through the capillary and get deposited in the adipose tissue as triglycerides. The lipoprotein remnants from the circulation, they are absorbed, they get attached to the remnant receptors on the liver cells or the hepatocytes, and they are absorbed into the lysosomes, from where the cholesterol is formed. Cholesterol acetyl coenzyme A with the HMG CoA enzyme, cholesterol is formed, and the bile acids, they are reabsorbed into the intestinal epithelium. In the endogenous one, in the blood circulation, VLDL, it is activated by the lipoprotein lipase enzyme. Intermediate density lipoproteins and low density lipoproteins, they are formed. The low density lipoprotein, it attaches to the LDL receptor on the hepatocytes and thus absorbed into the hepatocytes. LDL, it also enters the macrophage, and the lipid oxidation occurs, resulting in the atherosclerotic plaques. The LDL, they also attaches to LDL receptor on the peripheral cell, and they are absorbed through the lysosome. The cholesterol thus formed is used for the normal functioning of the cell membranes and the steroids. The HDL, the good lipids, they are converted to IDL and LDL also. The triglycerides, they are deposited in the adipose tissues, in the peripheral tissues. Hyperlipidemias can be of two types, primary and secondary. Primary ones are the monogenic or the polygenic ones. They are of different types: familial lipoprotein lipase deficiency, familial hypercholesterolemia, polygenic hypercholesterolemia, familial ligand defective apolipoprotein B, primary hypertriglyceridemia, familial combined hyperlipidemia. The secondary one is usually secondary to drugs, drug usage, or the diseases. Now the classification of hyperlipoproteinemias. The polygenic or familial hypercholesterolemia, this is type 2A, and the LDL, they are elevated, and the main lipid which is elevated is the cholesterol, total cholesterol, and this occurs due to deficient LDL receptor activity and the abnormal levels of ApoB100. high dietary fat and the excessive calories, so they result, and the inactivity. So all these together cause this disease. When these are raised, LDL and cholesterol, the main increased risk of coronary heart disease and stroke. In familial combined hyperlipidemia, it is type 2B. The elevated lipoprotein is LDL and VLDL. The main lipid which is elevated is cholesterol and triglycerides, and they are increased by the increased levels of VLDL production, increased conversion of VLDL to LDL, and they cause an increased risk of coronary heart disease and stroke. The familial dyslipoproteinemia, it is type 3, and the lipoproteins which are elevated are intermediate density lipoproteins, and the main lipids which are increased are the cholesterol and triglycerides, just like the familial combined hyperlipidemia. The mechanism by which this is caused is by the decreased plasma clearance of VLDL and the chylomicron remnants due to the abnormal ApoE. So they will result in an increased risk of coronary heart disease and stroke. In the familial hypertriglyceridemia, this is type 4, and the lipoprotein which is elevated is VLDL, and the main lipid which is increased is the triglycerides. This occurs because of overproduction of VLDL and low activity of LPL, lipoprotein lipase enzyme, the low activity of it, and it can result in pancreatitis and coronary heart disease, especially so if high density lipoprotein levels are low. So we have primarily 4 types of hyperlipoproteinemias: 2A, 2B, 3 and 4. And 2A, 2B, 3, these 3, they are if the levels are the increased levels in these 3 types, they cause an increased risk of coronary heart disease and stroke. The 4th type, it causes increased risk for pancreatitis and coronary heart disease if the high density lipoprotein levels are low. Now, the secondary hyperlipidemias, they are a sequelae to some primary disease. The most common ones are diabetes and hypothyroidism. So diabetes, it is the most common cause of combined dyslipidemia. In hypothyroidism, mostly their cholesterol levels are high, but the triglyceride levels are normal. The drugs which induces the dyslipidemia, they are anti-HIV drugs, thiazide diuretics and oral contraceptives. The treatment of primary hyperlipidemia, for the secondary, we have to treat the primary disease also, and the drugs which are causing it, we have to modulate them or change them. So the treatment of a primary hyperlipidemia is divided into 2: lifestyle modifications and pharmacotherapy. A recent study employing the intensive lifestyle changes in patients with coronary heart disease achieved a 37% lowering of LDL cholesterol, 91% decline in anginal episodes, and a decline in coronary artery stenosis within 1 year of lifestyle modifications, and all without drugs. So the lifestyle modifications in patients with hyperlipidemia is of paramount importance. If such measures do not improve the lipidogram, then pharmacological interventions can begin. So the lifestyle modifications, they are the daily exercise. Usually they say 45 minutes of exercise daily or walk is enough, with weight control. Stress management is again important, and reducing the total dietary fat intake per day. So that is, we have to decrease the dietary total fat, cholesterol, saturated fatty acids and trans fatty acids. By reducing them in diet, we can improve the lipidogram. And also by increasing the fiber intake in diet. And along with all this, the patient has to avoid alcohol intake. Now, when we have to start treating hypercholesterolemias, the principal risk factors for heart diseases are elevated levels of LDL cholesterol, a family history of heart disease, and hypertension. The other risks include being male, but postmenopausal women are at equal risk. Smoking, low levels of HDL cholesterol, which is the good cholesterol, if its levels are low, this is a risk factor. Diabetes mellitus, hyperhomocystinemia, high levels of lipoprotein A, and high blood levels of C-reactive protein. C-reactive protein is a marker for cellular inflammation. So these are the risk factors in addition to the elevated levels of LDL cholesterol, family history of heart disease, and hypertension. Now, the treatment guidelines for patients. So when we have to initiate which type of treatment. On this side are the LDL cholesterol levels, the initiation levels, and the minimum goal in milligrams per deciliter. So the dietary management or non-pharmacological treatment can be initiated when the lipids are raised but without coronary heart disease or two other risk factors. The initiation level of LDL cholesterol is more than 160 and the minimum goal is less than 160. And when the dyslipidemia is without the coronary heart disease with two or more other risk factors, then we have to initiate the therapy when the LDL cholesterol levels are more than 130 milligrams per deciliter and the minimum goal is less than 130. When dyslipidemia occurs along with CHD, then the initiation level is more than 100 milligram per deciliter of LDL cholesterol and we have to achieve a minimum goal of less than 100. Pharmacotherapy, when it has to be initiated, dyslipidemia without CHD or two other risk factors when the levels are more than 190 milligrams per deciliter and the minimum goal to be achieved is less than 160. When dyslipidemia occurs without CHD but with two or more other risk factors, so we have to initiate the therapy when LDL cholesterol levels are equal to or more than 160 milligrams per deciliter to achieve a minimum goal of less than 130. When dyslipidemia occurs along with coronary heart disease, we have to initiate the therapy when LDL cholesterol levels are more than 130 and the minimum goal is to bring them down to less than 100. So these are the treatment guidelines when dyslipidemia occurs with or without the other risk factors, when to initiate the lifestyle modifications and when to initiate the pharmacotherapy. Now, what all we have with us in hypolipidemic drugs. The different drug groups, they are statins, bile acid binding resins or sequestrins, nicotinic acid, fibric acid derivatives or commonly called fibrates, and the others. The statins are like atorvastatin, simvastatin, lovastatin. The bile acid binding resins, they are cholestyramine, cholestyramine, nicotinic acid like niacin, fibrates like gemfibrozil, fenofibrate, cloffibrate. Fenofibrate is a preferable drug. The others like ezetimibe, gugulipid, and probocol. So the mechanism of action of these, the resins, they act in the intestine by forming a complex this complex that is excreted in feces. The statins, they act by reducing or inhibiting the enzyme HMG-CoA. Niacin, it acts by inhibiting VLDL secretion. Fibrates, they act by increasing the levels of LPL or increasing the activity of lipoprotein lipase enzyme. This is the mechanism of action of fibrates. HMG-CoA reductase inhibitors, also called statins. They are lovastatin, rosuvastatin, simvastatin, atorvastatin, etc. They are structural analogues of HMG-CoA enzyme, and they competitively inhibit the HMG-CoA reductase enzyme. The upregulate, it is by the upregulation of LDL receptors, cause the upregulation of LDL receptors, and they are used primarily for reduction of LDL levels. So our main objective, when our main objective is to reduce the LDL levels, we prefer using the statins. Pharmacokinetics, lovastatin and simvastatin, they are inactive prodrugs and all are given with meals except pravastatin. The absorption varies between 40 to 75%. With fluvastatin, it achieves almost complete, it is completely absorbed. There is high first pass metabolism by cytochrome P450, and they are mainly excreted in bile, and 5 to 20% of them are excreted in urine. The half-life, it ranges from 1 to 3 hours. Atorvastatin half-life is longer, that is 14 hours. Now coming to adverse effects of statins, mainly they cause the hepatotoxicity. There can be threefold rise in liver enzymes, which commonly occurs and generally doesn't result in hepatotoxicity, but the liver enzymes, they can be raised threefold times. Further rise may indicate hepatotoxicity, and if it occurs, statins should be discontinued immediately. Other adverse effects can be myalgia, rhabdomyolysis, myoglobinemia, and acute renal failure. Coming on to drug interactions of statins, they are inhibitors of cytochrome P3A4 and cytochrome 2C9. Thereby they increase the plasma levels of statins. They are inducers of cytochrome and they reduce the plasma statin levels. Concomitant use of imidazole or verapamil along with the statins causes an increased risk of myopathy. So we have to use alternate drugs, not imidazole and not verapamil. Statins are contraindicated in pregnancy due to potential risk of teratogenicity. Now coming to bile acid binding resins, cholestyramine and cholestyramine. These two drugs, they decrease the LDL levels and they also increase the good lipids, that is the HDLs, and they also increase the triglycerides. They bind the bile acids in intestine, forming a complex which is excreted through the feces. Pharmacokinetically, these drugs are minimally absorbed from the intestine. These bile acid binding resins, they can cause constipation. They may cause increase in VLDL, necessitating the addition of a second agent such as niacin. So we studied in the last slide that they increase the triglycerides, decrease the LDL and increase the HDL. So if when VLDL is increased, so we will have to add a second agent like niacin to decrease these levels. They can cause a bad taste in mouth, which can lead to compliance issues. The drug interactions with bile acid sequestrants, they reduce the absorption of other drugs, they interfere with the normal fat absorption and prevent absorption of fat soluble vitamins like A, D, E, K. So we might have to give vitamin supplementation. Now coming to niacin, also called the nicotinic acid, they treat the combined dyslipidemias. That is, they decrease the VLDL and LDL levels, but they also increase the good lipids, that is the HDL lipids. Niacin, it acts primarily by inhibiting the VLDL secretion and thereby reducing the LDL levels. They also lower the triglycerides and lipoprotein A levels. Niacin can cause tachycardia, atrial arrhythmias, flushing, dry skin, nausea, diarrhea, acid peptic disease, hyperuricemia, that is gout can be precipitated, and hepatic dysfunction. That is, we have to monitor the hepatic levels. Contraindications, two are the peptic ulcers, arrhythmias, liver disease, and gout. So, the drug interactions, these drugs, they work synergistically with ganglion blockers, leading to orthostatic hypotension. So, when given along with ganglion blockers, they can cause orthostatic hypotension. Now, coming to fibric acid derivatives, also called fibrates, gemfibrozil and fenofibrate, they increase the activity of lipoprotein lipase enzyme. They reduce the VLDL, triglycerides, and they also raise the HDL, high density lipoproteins. They are used to treat hypertriglyceridemia and beta lipoproteinemia. These drugs, fibrates, they can cause rashes, GI symptoms, myopathy, arrhythmias, hypokalemia, high aminotransferase and alkaline phosphatase levels, and they can increase the risk of cholesterol gallstones. The major drug interaction is they increase the action of anticoagulants. So, we have to be careful. Contraindications to the hepatic and renal dysfunction and biliary tract disease. So, we have to be careful about not using these drugs in hepatic and renal dysfunction and the biliary tract disease. Now, coming to ezetimibe, this is a prodrug. It decreases the GI uptake of cholesterol, reduces the cholesterol pool in liver, and by causing the upregulation of LDL receptors, and ultimately it lowers the LDL and triglyceride levels. Generally, ezetimibe is well tolerated, but it may increase the hepatic toxicity with statins. So, ezetimibe not to be used along with statins. Now, to summarize today's discussion, all agents, they reduce LDL levels except fibrates, which lower only the triglyceride levels. All agents, they reduce the triglyceride levels except resins, which raise the triglyceride levels. Niacin, fibrates, resins, all these three raise the good lipids, that is the high density lipoproteins. So, I will reiterate it once again. All the hypolipidemic drugs, they reduce the LDL levels except fibrates. All agents, they reduce the triglyceride levels except resins, which raise the triglyceride levels. Resins, they act in an opposite way. Niacin, fibrates, resins, they raise the HDL levels. We can also raise the HDL levels, or the good lipids. They can also be raised by the non-pharmacological approaches, that is the lifestyle modifications with exercise and eating more of fruits. Now, coming to summarization of the adverse effects. The resins, they cause nausea, gastric discomfort and constipation. Niacin, it causes abnormal liver function, flushing, atrial arrhythmias, pruritus and hyperuricemia. Statins, they cause abnormal liver function, myalgia and rhabdomyolysis. Fibrates, they cause abnormal liver function, myopathy and gallstones. So, the drug of choice in hyperlipidemia. So which lipoproteins are increased and which are the drugs of choice? In familial lipoprotein lipase deficiency, fibrates and niacins, they are the drugs of choice. In familial hypercholesterolemia, when low density lipoproteins are increased, the drug of choice is niacin and statin. In polygenic hypercholesterolemia, LDL levels, they are raised, so to decrease them we can use statins, niacin, bile acid resins. In ligand defective apolipoprotein B type of hyperlipidemia, there is an increase in intermediate density lipoproteins and chylomicron remnants. The drugs of choice which are used to lower these levels, they are statins, niacin and fibrates. In primary hypertriglyceridemia, that is when triglycerides and VLDL levels are raised, we are to use niacin and fibrates. These two drugs are the ones which decrease the levels of triglycerides and VLDL. In familial combined hyperlipidemia, there is increased levels of triglyceride, VLDL and low density lipoproteins. So to treat them or to reduce them, the drug of choice are the niacin, statins and fibrates. So these are the drugs of choices when different lipoproteins are increased. So the drug of choice would depend upon the diagnosis of type of dyslipidemia and the lipidogram, which levels of lipoproteins are increased. So accordingly, our drug of choice would vary. So at a glance, the drugs of choice in hyperlipidemia, when LDL and triglycerides are increased, the drugs of choices would be statins, resins and niacin. When LDL and triglycerides are raised, our drugs of choices would be statins, fibrates and niacin. When triglycerides are raised, only triglycerides are raised, our drugs of choices would be fibrates and niacin. We can use them as monotherapy or together also, depending upon how much they are increased. So that is all for today. Thank you.